The great chamber of the Galactic Council stretched for nearly a kilometer in every direction. Its walls were made of living crystal that pulsed with soft blue light. Thousands of seats rose in circular tiers, filled with beings from across the known universe. Some had scales, some had feathers, some had no bodies at all and floated as clouds of pure energy. They had gathered here for 10,000 years to decide the fate of civilizations. Today, they had gathered to laugh. Captain Park stood at the center of the chamber floor, his hands clasped behind his back. He was a man of average height with gray hair at his temples and calm brown eyes. His uniform was simple, dark blue with silver buttons. Beside him stood Lieutenant, a younger woman with sharp features and black hair pulled back in a tight bun. She held a small device in her hands, recording everything. Around them, the laughter continued. "These are the humans," Ambassador spoke from his elevated seat. He was a massive creature, nearly 3 meters tall, with dark green scales and yellow eyes with vertical pupils. His voice boomed through the chamber like thunder. "These soft little things." More laughter rippled through the crowd. Leaned forward, his clawed hands gripping the railing before him. "I have read your species report. No natural armor, no claws, no venom glands. You cannot see in the dark. You cannot hear frequencies beyond a narrow range. You cannot even breathe underwater." He made a sound that might have been amusement. "What exactly do you offer the galaxy?" Did not move. His expression remained peaceful, almost serene. "We offer friendship, Ambassador, partnership, the chance to learn from each other." This brought the loudest laughter yet. A creature made of crystalline shards spoke from somewhere to the left. "Friendship. We have observed your world for some time, human. You cannot even maintain friendship among yourselves. Your history is nothing but war, destruction, and chaos." "That is true," said simply. "We have made many mistakes." The chamber grew slightly quieter. They had expected denial. They had expected excuses. Simple agreement caught them off guard. Recovered quickly. "Your species has been traveling between stars for only 200 years. Some of us have been here for millions. You are infants, worse than infants. You are prey animals who somehow stumbled into space." "Perhaps," Sid's fingers tightened on her recording device, but she said nothing. "We have reviewed your military capabilities," continued. "Your ships are slow. Your weapons are primitive. A single hunting pack could destroy your entire fleet in an afternoon." He gestured toward a section of the chamber where massive reptilian creatures sat in darkness. Their eyes glowed red in the shadows. "You have come here to request protected species status. You want us to keep you safe because you cannot keep yourselves safe." "That is correct," said. "We are aware of our limitations." "Then you admit you are weak." "I admit we are new to this galaxy. We have much to learn." Stood from his seat, his full height casting a shadow across the chamber floor. "Protected status is granted to species that show potential, species that might one day contribute something of value. What do humans contribute? What makes you worthy of our protection?" Considered the question for a long moment. The chamber waited. "We endure," he said finally. "That is what we offer, we endure." Stared at him. Then he laughed again and the chamber laughed with him. "Endurance, that is your great gift." The ambassador shook his massive head. "The endure through strength. The crystalline collective endures through unity. The void singers endure through transcendence. You offer nothing but soft bodies and short lives." "Perhaps you are right," said. "I am right," raised one clawed hand. "The council votes, all in favor of granting protected species status to the humans of Earth." Silence. Not a single delegate moved. All opposed. Thousands of hands, claws, tentacles, and energy fields rose in unison. "The motion fails." His voice held satisfaction. "Humanity is protected status. You may remain in the gallery as observers if you wish, but you will receive no protection from this council. Whatever happens to your species in the darkness between stars is your own concern." bowed his head slightly. "We understand. Thank you for hearing our request." This response seemed to irritate more than anything else. "You do not argue. You do not demand justice." What would be the point? Looked up at the ambassador with those calm brown eyes. "You have made your decision. We accept it." Just like that. Just like that. Made a dismissive gesture with his claws. "Leave this chamber, human. Return to your little world and enjoy what time you have left. The galaxy is not kind to the weak." Bowed once more. Then he turned and walked toward the exit, his boots clicking softly on the crystal floor. Fell into step beside him, her recording device still active. The laughter followed them all the way to the door. But not everyone was laughing. In the highest tier of the chamber, in a seat that had been occupied for over 800,000 years, sat a being called. Their form was difficult to describe. Sometimes they appeared as an old woman wrapped in gray robes, sometimes as a column of pale light, sometimes as nothing at all. They were among the eldest members of the council, old enough to remember wars that had burned across entire galaxies. Watched the two humans walk away. They had seen countless species come before this council. Young species, old species, proud species, desperate species. They had seen warriors who roared defiance and scholars who argued with perfect logic. They had seen empires rise and fall like waves upon a shore. But they had never seen anything quite like the look in Captain Park's eyes. It was not fear. Any sensible creature would feel fear standing before the collected might of the galaxy. It was not anger. Many species responded to mockery with rage. It was something else entirely. Patience. The human had stood in the center of a chamber filled with beings who could destroy his entire civilization in a single day, and he had been patient. He had accepted their laughter. He had accepted their rejection. He had bowed his head and walked away without a single word of protest. Why? Had lived long enough to know that patience was not weakness. Patience was what predators displayed when they were waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Patience was what ancient powers displayed when they knew time itself was on their side. What did a species with soft bodies and short lives know about patience? The question troubled as they watched the chamber doors close behind the human delegation. Down below was already moving on to other business. The humans were forgotten, a minor amusement, a moment's entertainment in the endless proceedings of galactic governance. But did not forget. They pulled up the human species file on their personal display and began to read more carefully. History, biology, psychology, social structures, everything the council's observers had gathered over the past 2 centuries. One phrase caught their attention. Persistence hunting. Read the entry 3 times. Then they sat back in their ancient seat and stared at the empty chamber floor where the humans had stood. Interesting, they whispered to no one. Very interesting indeed. Outside the council chamber and walked in silence through the station's gleaming corridors. Other species moved around them, most ignoring the 2 humans entirely. A few pointed and made sounds of amusement. Finally spoke, "Sir, are you all right?" Glanced at her. For just a moment, something flickered in his calm eyes, something old and patient and very, very determined. "I'm fine, Lieutenant." He returned his gaze to the path ahead. "Did you get everything recorded?" "Every word, sir." "Good." A small smile crossed his face. "We have a lot of work to do." 6 months after the council meeting, the came. Governor was reviewing agricultural reports when the alarms began to wail. She was a woman in her 50s with silver-streaked hair and hands that still remembered how to build things. Before she became a governor, she had been an engineer. Before that, she had been a soldier. She had hoped those days were behind her. The alarms told her otherwise. "Report," she said, striding into the colony's command center. Sergeant looked up from his console. He was young, barely 30, with a scar running down his left cheek from a mining accident years ago. 40 warships, Governor, Dominion. They just dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of our system. Felt her stomach tighten, but her face remained calm. 4 was a small colony, 12,000 people. Farmers, miners, families. They had come here to build new lives far from the crowded worlds of human space. They had not come here to die. Time until they reach orbit. 3 hours, Governor. Defense Forces. His expression was grim. 200 soldiers, 30 patrol craft, nothing that can stand against warships. Closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, they were hard as stone. Get me a channel to their fleet commander. The main screen flickered to life moments later. The face that appeared was not remotely human. Warlord was a massive, his scales darker than most, almost black. His eyes burned with predatory intelligence. Behind him could see the bridge of his flagship, all sharp angles and red lighting. Human said, his voice was deep and filled with contempt. I am Warlord of the Dominion. Your colony sits on a world rich in rare minerals. The Dominion claims this world. You will surrender immediately. And if we refuse, asked. Made a sound like grinding rocks. It took her a moment to realize he was laughing. Then we will take it anyway. Your people will die. Your buildings will burn. Everything you have built will become dust. He leaned closer to the screen. You have 1 hour to surrender. Use the time to say goodbye to your families. The screen went dark. Was staring at her, Governor. Turned to face the command center. Every eye was on her. She could see the fear in their faces, the despair. They all knew the stories about the apex predators, conquerors. They had crushed dozens of species beneath their claws. Begin evacuation to the underground bunkers, said. All civilians, all non-combat personnel. Move. And then, asked. And then we show them what humans do when they cannot run. The next hour was controlled chaos. Families gathered their children. Emergency supplies were distributed. The underground bunkers, originally built for protection against solar storms, became shelters for 12,000 terrified people. Above ground gathered his soldiers. We cannot win, he told them honestly. We all know that, 200 of us against an invasion force. We would need a miracle. The soldiers listened in silence. But we do not need to win. Eyes swept across their faces. We just need to hold. Every hour we delay them is an hour for rescue to arrive. Every soldier we take with us is one less monster in this galaxy. He raised his weapon. We are human. We do not surrender. We do not give up. We endure. A ragged cheer rose from the soldiers. They spent the remaining time preparing. Not traditional defenses. They knew those would fail. Instead, they prepared something else entirely. Drabs had spent the past 6 months quietly fortifying the colony, not with walls and weapons, but with something far more dangerous. False corridors that led nowhere, pit traps covered with thin metal sheeting, buildings rigged to collapse, underground tunnels that connected every major structure. The thought they were attacking a helpless colony. They were walking into a maze designed by a species that had spent its entire existence hunting and being hunted. When the landing craft touched down, expected screaming. He expected running. He expected the sweet terror of prey animals facing their inevitable death. Instead, he found empty streets. Where are they? His second-in-command looked around nervously. The colony was silent. Wind blew dust between the buildings. Underground, perhaps, sniffed the air. He could smell them, thousands of humans hiding somewhere below. No matter, we will dig them out. He ordered his forces forward. The first squad to enter the agricultural processing building never came out. One moment they were reporting all clear. The next, there was silence on the communication channel. Sent a second squad to investigate. They found the first squad at the bottom of a pit, 15 meters deep, impaled on sharpened metal stakes. Primitive growled, "Do they think such tricks will stop us?" But the tricks continued. Buildings collapsed without warning, burying soldiers under tons of rubble. Tunnels filled with smoke that blinded eyes. Power stations exploded when touched, taking out entire units. And through it all, human soldiers struck from the shadows, firing a few shots, then vanishing before they could respond. They never stood and fought. They never offered a fair battle. They just kept appearing, hurting and disappearing. Night fell on four, and they found themselves fighting in total darkness. The humans had destroyed every light source in the colony. Eyes were good, but the humans seemed to know the terrain perfectly. Every corner held a potential ambush. Every shadow might contain death. Moved through the tunnels like a ghost. His team of 20 soldiers had been reduced to 8, but they had taken over 50 with them. Now they prepared their next attack. 3 targets, he whispered into his communicator. Supply depot, fuel reserves, communication relay. Hit them all at once, then fall back to position 7. His soldiers acknowledged. The attacks came at exactly midnight. The supply depot burned. The fuel reserves exploded in a column of fire that lit up the night sky. The communication relay was destroyed, cutting off ground forces from their fleet. Stood in the ruins of what had been the colony's town center, watching his army fall apart around him. "This is impossible," his second-in-command said. "They are prey. They should be hiding. They should be begging for mercy." "They are not prey." His voice was quiet, almost thoughtful. "I do not know what they are, but they are not prey." For 2 more days, the battle continued. They had superior numbers, superior weapons, superior everything. But the humans refused to play by the rules. They never rested. They never stopped. Every time they thought they had won, another attack came from another direction. By the end of the 3rd day, had lost nearly 1,000 soldiers. His army was exhausted. His officers were jumping at shadows. Morale was shattered. "Enough," he finally said. "Orbital bombardment. Burn this entire colony to ash." His second-in-command hesitated. "Warlord, the minerals we came for." "I do not care about the minerals anymore." Eyes were wild. "I want these humans dead, all of them now." He gave the order. But before his ships could fire, alarms began screaming across his fleet. "Warlord," a panicked voice came through the communication channel. "Ships emerging from faster-than-light travel. Many ships. Behind us." Spun to look at his tactical display. His blood turned cold. The human 7th Response Fleet had arrived. 60 warships, arranged in perfect formation. And they were not alone. Behind them came ships of other designs, trading partners, scientific allies, species that humanity had quietly befriended over the past 6 months. A communication request came through. Accepted it with numb fingers. The face that appeared was human, an older man with gray hair and hard eyes, Admiral Han. "Warlord," the admiral said calmly, "you are currently bombarding a human colony world. I am giving you one chance to withdraw. Take it." Stared at the screen. Behind the admiral he could see the bridge of a human warship. The crew moved with quiet efficiency. No fear, no panic. "Just patience." "You are outnumbered," said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Yes," Admiral Han agreed. "We usually are. It has never stopped us before." The communication ended. Looked at his tactical display again. Then he looked at the ruins of the colony below, where 200 humans had held off his entire army for 3 days. For the first time in his life, he felt something unfamiliar. Doubt. The battle above 4 should have been over in hours. 40 warships against a combined fleet of 60 human and allied vessels. They were warriors. They had conquered star systems. They had destroyed civilizations. The battle lasted a week. Admiral Han stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Persistence, watching the tactical display with calm eyes. Around him, his crew moved through their rotations with practiced efficiency. Every 8 hours, a new shift took over. Fresh eyes, fresh minds, fresh bodies. They had no such luxury. "Status report," Han said. His tactical officer, a young woman named Shin, looked up from her console. "Enemy fleet showing signs of fatigue, Admiral. Their formation is becoming sloppy. Response times are increasing. We have confirmed reports of several collisions between their own ships." Han nodded slowly. "And our forces?" "All ships at 80% combat effectiveness or higher. Crew morale is strong. The Allied vessels are holding formation." It was working. The humans had not tried to destroy the fleet. They had not engaged in any glorious battles or desperate last stands. Instead, they had done something far more devastating. They had simply refused to let the rest. Every few hours, a small group of human ships would dart forward, fire a few shots, and retreat before they could respond. The damage was minimal. The psychological effect was enormous. Crews could not sleep. They could not relax. Every time they closed their eyes, alarms would scream and they would rush back to battle stations. For a day, it was annoying. For 2 days, it was frustrating. By the fourth day, officers were making mistakes. By the sixth day, they were barely functioning. On the bridge of his flagship, Warlord stared at nothing. His eyes were red with exhaustion. His claws trembled. He had not slept in over 100 hours. Every time he tried, the humans came again. "Why will they not fight?" he muttered. "Why will they not face us properly?" His second-in-command did not answer. He had collapsed at his station 2 hours ago and could not be woken. Far away in the great chamber of the Galactic Council, the galaxy watched. Dr. Moon stood before the assembled delegates, her image projected on the chamber's main display. She was a scientist who studied alien life. She had spent her entire career trying to help the galaxy understand humanity. Now finally they were listening. "What you are witnessing is not a battle in the traditional sense," explained. Her voice was calm and clear. "The humans are not trying to destroy the fleet. They are hunting it." Ambassador leaned forward in his seat. The mockery that had filled his eyes 6 months ago was gone, replaced by something that might have been concern. "Hunting? What do you mean, hunting?" "Humans evolved as persistence hunters, brought up an image of ancient Earth, a vast grassland under a burning sun. They had no claws, no fangs, no armor. They could not outrun their prey or overpower it, so they developed a different strategy." The image changed to show primitive humans following a large animal across the grassland. They would chase their prey for hours, sometimes days, not running, just walking, following, never stopping. His voice grew quieter. "Most animals can run faster than humans, but they cannot run forever. They overheat. They exhaust themselves. Eventually, they collapse." The chamber was silent. The humans would walk up to their fallen prey and kill it with simple tools, not through strength, through patience, through persistence. Look directly at. This is what humans are, Ambassador. They are not warriors. They are not prey. They are the creature that follows you through the night, the thing that never stops, the hunter that waits until you can no longer run. Up in the highest tier, watched with ancient eyes. They remembered now where they had seen that look before, the look in Captain's eyes when he had stood in this very chamber. It was the look of a predator that had already won. It just had not told its prey yet. Back above 4, Admiral Han received a communication request from Warlord. The commander looked like a shadow of himself. His scales had lost their shine. His eyes could barely focus. When he spoke, his voice was hoarse. "What do you want?" asked. "What will it take to make you stop?" Han studied him for a long moment. "Leave, take your fleet and go, never return to human space." "And if I refuse?" "Then we continue, for another week if necessary, another month, another year." Han's expression did not change. We have plenty of ships, warlord, we have plenty of crews, and we have something you do not. What? Patience was silent. Behind him, his bridge crew moved like sleepwalkers. One officer was quietly weeping at her station. Another was staring at a blank screen, mumbling to himself. You are monsters, whispered. No, Han shook his head. We are human. This is simply what we do. We endure, we persist. We never ever stop. He leaned forward slightly. This is your final chance, warlord. Take your ships and leave, or we will chase you across the galaxy and we will never let you rest again. The communication ended. For a long moment, stared at the empty screen. Then he turned to his helmsman. Set course for Dominion space, he said quietly. We are leaving. Warlord, the helmsman could barely believe what he was hearing. We cannot retreat. The dishonor. There is no dishonor in this. His voice was empty. There is no dishonor in running from something that cannot be beaten. The fleet turned and fled. On the surface of 4, Sergeant emerged from the tunnels with his surviving soldiers. They looked up at the sky and watched the ships disappear into the distance. Sat down on a pile of rubble, he was exhausted, he was injured, he had lost good friends in the past week. But he was alive. Governor climbed up beside him. Her face was covered in dust, and her hands were bleeding, but she was smiling. We did it, she said. We survived, corrected. The fleet did the rest. No, shook her head. We held, that was what mattered. We held long enough for help to arrive. She looked at the soldiers around her, wounded, tired, but unbroken. That is what humans do. We hold. In the Galactic Council chamber, the delegates were still processing what they had witnessed. A species they had dismissed as prey animals had just defeated one of the most feared military forces in the galaxy. Not through superior weapons. Not through greater numbers. Through persistence. Rose from their ancient seat and addressed the chamber. Their voice was soft, but it carried to every corner. I have watched civilizations rise and fall for 800,000 years. I have seen warriors and conquerors and empire builders. I have never seen anything like these humans. Shifted uncomfortably. They are still weak. Their individual soldiers are no match for ours. Perhaps, form flickered, becoming briefly transparent. But strength is not everything, Ambassador. They are strong, yet they are running. The humans are weak, yet they are standing. The ancient being paused. We asked what humans could offer the galaxy. Now we know. What's demanded? Looked at the footage still playing on the chamber's main display. Human ships endlessly circling. Human soldiers endlessly fighting. Human faces endlessly patient. They offer something we had forgotten existed, said quietly. They offer the will to never give up, to never stop, to keep going long after any reasonable species would have surrendered. The ancient being's eyes seemed to glow. They asked us for protection. Perhaps we should have asked what they were protecting us from. The chamber fell silent. And somewhere in deep space, the human fleet set course for home. They had won their first victory. It would not be their last. Humans terrified no one. The Galactic Council witnessed their true power. Part 4. The Dominion's Mistake. The Dominion had not lost a war in 3,000 years. They had crushed rebellions, conquered worlds, and broken the spirit of dozens of species. Their military was the terror of the galaxy. Now they prepared for total war against humanity. Supreme Commander stood before the assembled War Council on the Dominion. He was older than Warlord, larger, and far more dangerous. Where had been arrogant was calculating. He had not survived 3,000 years of politics by being stupid. 500 warships, he announced. The largest fleet we have assembled in a century. We will burn every human colony. We will destroy every human station. We will end this species before they become a greater threat. The council roared their approval. But one voice remained silent. Dominion elder sat in the shadows at the back of the chamber. She was ancient even by standards. Her scales had faded to pale gray, and her eyes held memories of times long forgotten. She had seen the Dominion rise from nothing. She remembered what they had been before they became conquerors. She remembered being hunted. "Supreme Commander," she said, her voice cutting through the noise. "Has anyone asked why the humans defeated?" Turned to face her. Was a fool, he underestimated them. "And you will not. I will crush them with overwhelming force. There will be no games, no delays, just destruction." Nodded slowly. "Perhaps, but I have been watching the reports from our scouts. The humans have not been preparing for war. They have been sending diplomatic ships to every corner of the galaxy. Running to find allies, pathetic. Not running." Eyes glittered. "Building. They are building something. I do not know what, but I can feel it." Dismissed her concerns with a wave of his clawed hand. "Old female, your time has passed. We are the nothing can stand against us." 2 days before the invasion was scheduled to begin, a single ship appeared at the edge of space. It was small, unarmed. It carried no escort. Its name was the Patience. Ambassador stood alone on the bridge as the ship approached the Dominion. She was a small woman with gentle eyes and gray-streaked hair. She had spent her life studying alien cultures, learning their languages, understanding their histories. Now she carried humanity's last hope for peace. "Ambassador," her pilot said nervously, "interceptors are approaching, 12 ships." "Let them come." "They are charging weapons." "Let them." The interceptors surrounded the small human vessel, their weapons locked on. One shot would turn the Patience into scattered atoms. "Human ship," a harsh voice came over the communication channel. "You have entered Dominion space. Surrender immediately or be destroyed." Activated her own communicator. "I am Ambassador of Earth. I request a meeting with Supreme Commander and the Dominion War Council. I come alone and unarmed. I offer only words." Silence. Then to everyone's surprise, a different voice spoke, older, calmer. "Let her pass." It was. The interceptors hesitated, then pulled back. The Patience continued toward the 1 hour later, stood in the great war chamber of the Dominion. She was surrounded by the most powerful beings in society, warriors, commanders, politicians. All of them could kill her with a single swipe of their claws. She did not seem afraid. Loomed over her, his massive form casting a shadow that engulfed her entirely. "You have courage, human. I will give you that. But courage will not save your species." "I did not come here to save my species," said calmly. "I came here to save yours." The chamber exploded with outrage. Voices roared their anger at the tiny human who dared speak such words. But raised one hand, and the chamber fell silent. "Explain," the elder said. Reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device. She placed it on the floor, and it projected an image into the air, but different, older, covered in forests instead of cities. "Before you were conquerors, you were prey," said. "For millions of years, your ancestors lived in fear. Larger predators hunted you. You hid in caves and trembled in the darkness." Made a sound of disgust. "Ancient history, we evolved beyond that weakness." "Did you?" Change the image. Now it showed soldiers, modern warriors in their advanced armor. "Or did you simply become the thing you feared? You conquered because you remembered what it felt like to be conquered. You hunted because you remembered what it felt like to be hunted." The chamber was silent. "Humans understand this," continued. "We were prey once too, small and weak, surrounded by predators. We survived through cooperation, through persistence, through refusing to give up on each other." She looked around the chamber. "We do not want to destroy you. We do not want war. We want something far more valuable." "And what is that?" asked. "Alliance." Laughed. "Alliance. You insult us. They do not need allies. We do not need anyone." No pulled up another image, a map of the galaxy with the Dominion marked in red. Around it, other powers were marked in different colors. The Crystalline Collective to your north, the Void Singers to your south, the Council species pressing on all sides. You have enemies everywhere, Supreme Commander. How long before they unite against you? Said nothing. Fight us and you might win, said. Your 500 ships against our 80. The numbers favor you, but we will not surrender. We will not stop fighting. We will make your victory cost more than you can imagine. She paused. And while you are bleeding against us, your other enemies will be watching, waiting, preparing. Leaned forward. What exactly are you offering, human? Partnership. We will share technology with you. We will trade with you. And when your enemies come, and they will come, we will fight beside you. Looked directly at. They have always stood alone. That is why you are surrounded by enemies. We are offering you something you have never had before. What? Friends who will never abandon you. No matter how dark the night, no matter how long the war, humans do not give up on those they call allies. Smiled slightly. We are annoying that way. The chamber was silent for a long time, then began to laugh. It was a strange sound, rough and ancient but genuine. I remember, she said finally. I remember when we huddled in caves, when we were weak, when we needed each other to survive. Her eyes fixed on. We forgot that lesson when we became strong. Perhaps it is time to remember. Elder growled. You cannot seriously be considering. I am considering what is best for the Dominion. Rose to her full height. Despite her age, she was still impressive. We have spent 3,000 years making enemies. Perhaps it is time to make a friend. The debate lasted 3 days. Argued for war, argued for peace. Other members of the council shifted back and forth, uncertain which path to choose. In the end, it was a young officer who spoke the words that decided everything. I was on ship, he said quietly. I saw what the humans did to us. They never stopped. They never rested. They just kept coming hour after hour, day after day. He looked at. I do not want to fight an enemy like that, Supreme Commander. I have seen what they do to those who oppose them. I would rather have them at my side. The vote was close, but the alliance passed. Returned to human space with a treaty in hand. The Dominion, the most feared power in the galaxy, had become humanity's ally. In the Galactic Council chamber, Ambassador watched the announcement with disbelief. Impossible, he whispered. They do not make alliances, they do not make friends. Beside him smiled. Apparently they do now. Turned to the ancient being. What are these humans doing? First they survive an invasion, then they turn their enemies into allies. How? Considered the question for a long moment. They are building something, they said finally. Not an empire, not a military force, something else entirely. The ancient eyes grew distant. I have seen many civilizations rise. Most build walls, most build weapons. The humans are building bridges. Bridges. Connections, relationships, trust. Looked at the screen where human and diplomats were shaking hands. They are weaving themselves into the fabric of the galaxy, making themselves valuable, making themselves necessary. Shook his head. Why, what do they want? Did not answer. But deep inside, they were beginning to understand. And for the first time in 800,000 years, they were afraid. Humans terrified no one. The Galactic Council witnessed their true power. Part 5, True Power Revealed. 5 years passed, and the galaxy changed. No one noticed at first. The changes were small, a trade agreement here, a cultural exchange there. Human ships began appearing in ports across known space, not as warriors but as merchants, scientists, diplomats. They asked questions. They listened to answers. They remembered names and faces and histories. They made friends. Fleet Admiral Park, the same man who had stood before the Galactic Council and accepted their mockery with a bow, now commanded humanity's military forces. His hair had gone completely white, but his eyes remained calm. patient. He was reviewing fleet deployments when the first reports came in. Admiral, his aide, a young man named, looked pale. "We have contact at the edge of the galaxy. Something is coming." Set down his tea. "Show me." The display came to life with images that made no sense. Ships, if they could be called ships, emerged from the darkness between galaxies. They were vast, twisted things made of metal and something that might have been flesh. They moved without engines. They did not respond to communication. They simply consumed everything in their path. "What are they?" whispered. "The Hollowed's voice was quiet. "The Council has records of them from millions of years ago. They come from beyond our galaxy. They eat stars, they destroy worlds, and they cannot be reasoned with." "How many ships?" Was silent for a moment. "Billions." The Galactic Council met in emergency session. For the first time in 10,000 years, every seat was filled. Every species had sent representatives. Fear hung in the air like smoke. Ambassador stood before the assembly. His arrogance was gone, replaced by something close to panic. "Our combined fleets number in the hundreds of thousands," he announced. "The hollowed number in the billions. Our weapons barely scratch their hulls. Our shields cannot stop their attacks." His voice cracked. "We cannot win this war." Chaos erupted. Delegates shouted at each other. Some demanded surrender. Some demanded evacuation. Some simply screamed. A single voice cut through the noise. "We can win." The chamber fell silent. All eyes turned to the human delegation. Council Speaker, the same woman who had stood beside in this chamber 5 years ago, rose from her seat. She was older now, with lines around her eyes and steel in her voice. "Humanity has spent the last 5 years building something," she said. "Not warships, not weapons, something more valuable." "What?" demanded. "What could possibly be more valuable than weapons against such an enemy?" Smiled. It was a sad smile, but there was iron behind it. "Trust." She activated her communication device. Across the galaxy, messages were sent, and across the galaxy, responses came back. The Dominion, humanity's former enemies, now their closest allies. The trader guilds of the Outer Rim, who had worked with human merchants for years. The scientific collective of the Eastern Spiral, who had collaborated with human researchers on countless projects. Dozens of species, hundreds of worlds, thousands of ships, all answering humanity's call. "You asked what makes humans dangerous," said to the silent chamber. "It is not our ships, not our weapons, not our technology." She looked around at the assembled delegates. "It is this: we do not give up on each other. We remember those who help us. We honor those who stand beside us. And we never, ever abandon our friends." The war against the Hollowed lasted 3 years. It was the worst conflict the galaxy had ever seen. Entire star systems fell. Billions died. There were moments when defeat seemed certain, when the darkness seemed unstoppable. But humanity did not stop. When the lines broke, human ships covered their retreat. When the trader guilds ran out of supplies, human convoys brought food and medicine through enemy territory. When the scientific collective lost their research stations, human scientists worked around the clock to rebuild their databases. Again and again, species that had known humanity for only a few years watched in amazement as these soft, weak creatures threw themselves into the fire to protect their allies. Admiral Park commanded the final battle from the bridge of his flagship. He had not slept in 3 days. His hands trembled. His heart was failing. The doctors had told him he had weeks to live at most. But he was still standing. "All ships," he said into his communicator. "This is Admiral Park. The hollowed main fleet is in range. This is the moment we have been fighting for. This is the moment we prove that the light is stronger than the darkness." Around him, the combined fleet of 100 species waited. Human ships flew beside warships. Trader guild vessels protected scientific collective stations. Former enemies stood shoulder to shoulder against the common threat. Thought of the day he had stood before the council, accepting their laughter with a bow. He thought of the colonists of four, who had held the line against impossible odds. He thought of Ambassador, who had walked alone into the heart of enemy territory to offer friendship. We do not give up, he thought. We never give up. That is what we are. All ships, he said, attack. The battle raged for 17 hours. Ships burned. Heroes died. The hollowed came in waves, endless and terrible. But the coalition did not break. When human ships were destroyed, vessels moved to fill the gaps. When shields failed, Trader Guild engineers worked under fire to repair them. When hope faded, someone would remember why they were fighting, and the fire would return to their eyes. In the end, it was not one species that saved the galaxy. It was all of them, fighting together, refusing to surrender, refusing to abandon each other. The last hollowed ship fell, and silence spread across the stars. The Galactic Council reconvened 1 month later. The chamber was packed, every seat was filled, but the atmosphere was different now. The mockery was gone, the arrogance was gone. In its place was something new. Respect. Ambassador rose from his seat. He looked older, worn by the war. When he spoke, his voice was humble. Humanity has saved this galaxy, he said. We owe them a debt that can never be repaid. He paused, gathering himself. I move to grant humanity full council membership, a permanent seat among the great powers. The vote was unanimous. But when all eyes turned to the human delegation, remained seated. Council Speaker said, confused, "You have been granted what you requested 5 years ago, full membership, protection, recognition. Will you not accept?" Rose slowly. She looked around the chamber at the faces of 100 species, allies, friends, family. 5 years ago we asked for protection because we thought we needed it, she said. We thought we were weak. We thought we needed you to keep us safe. She shook her head. We were wrong. Not about being weak, we are weak. But we learned that weakness is not the same as helplessness. She stepped forward, into the center of the chamber floor. You offered us a seat at your table, but in the past 5 years we have been building our own table, a place where species are judged not by their strength but by their hearts, a place where old enemies can become new friends, a place where no one is abandoned. Looked up at the council. We do not need a seat at your table anymore. We have built something better, she smiled, a warm, genuine smile. But you are welcome to join us. Silence. Then slowly rose from their ancient seat in the highest tier. The being who had watched civilizations rise and fall for 800,000 years descended to the chamber floor and stood beside. I have been waiting for something like this for a very long time, said softly. A species that builds instead of conquers, that connects instead of divides, that sees strength not in power but in unity. They turned to face the council. I am joining them. Stared, then slowly, he rose from his seat. So am I. One by one, delegates stood. One by one, they descended to the chamber floor, old enemies standing beside old friends, species that had fought wars against each other now standing together. At the center of it all stood a human woman with gray hair, and iron in her voice. This is our power, said to the galaxy. Not warships, not weapons, not technology, this. She gestured at the beings surrounding her. Connection, trust, love. Her voice rose. The knowledge that no matter how dark the night, no matter how long the war, we will never stop fighting for each other. We will never give up. We will never abandon our friends. She looked up at the great crystal ceiling of the council chamber. You asked what humans could offer the galaxy. This is our answer. We offer everything we have, everything we are, and we will keep offering it until the stars themselves go dark. The chamber was silent. Then, for the first time in 10,000 years, the Galactic Council erupted not in mockery, not in fear, but in applause. And at the back of the crowd, Admiral Park watched with calm eyes and a small smile. We endure, he thought. That is what we offer. And it was enough. It was always enough.